Welcome to District Command Central, your go-to source for the latest news and updates on the Washington Commanders. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a play. Robert Griffin III has always been one of those voices in football that speaks with the weight of experience, not just as an analyst, but as a man who's lived the pain, the promise, and the heartbreak that comes when talent collides with organizational chaos. And this week, his voice carried an emotional punch that hit right in the heart of Washington Commanders fans after Jayden Daniels went down with what looked like a devastating elbow injury in that 38-14 loss to the Seattle Seahawks. The initial reaction across the league was pure dread. Daniels was seen clutching his arm, the pain visible on his face. And immediately people thought the worst, that the rookie sensation, the spark of hope in what has been another dark year for Washington football, might be done for the season. But then came a twist. The reports trickled in, and suddenly the narrative changed. The injury wasn't as bad as it looked. No ligament damage, no surgery required. A sigh of relief swept through the fan base. Yet, in the middle of that relief, Robert Griffin III, the man who once carried the same hopes for this same franchise, stepped up and said what many didn't want to hear: sit him down for the rest of the season. And when RGII says something like that, it's not just commentary, it's a confession born out of scars. On his Out of Pocket with RGII podcast, Griffin opened up in a way that felt almost haunting. "I haven't spoken to much on my time in DC," he said, his tone caught between nostalgia and pain. "I even scrapped a book because I didn't feel like it was the right time to have that conversation. Eventually, there will be a time to have that convo." That line hit hard, not just because of what it revealed, but because of what it left unsaid. Griffin has never fully unpacked his story in Washington. The meteoric rise, the electric rookie year, and the tragic fall that followed. But in speaking about Jayden Daniels, you could feel that he was reliving pieces of his own past, moments that never truly healed. Griffin didn't stop there. He leaned into the eerie symmetry between his career and Daniels' situation. A parallel so uncanny that it feels like something out of a football horror story. "Just know," he continued, "my situation in DC and Jayden's, outside of the surface-level black quarterback, second pick, Heisman Trophy winner, hurt on the same yard line on the same field against the same team. It's not the same. Trust me. It's wild. It's like the Twilight Zone, some voodoo stuff." You could almost hear the disbelief in his voice, as if even he couldn't quite process how history seemed to be repeating itself. Almost frame by frame, the same team, the same stadium, the same type of play that turned promise into pain. It's the kind of thing that makes fans and players alike shudder, wondering if there's some curse hanging over that patch of turf in Landover. But then RGII pivoted to what really mattered. The lesson learned through personal heartbreak. It's not the same, he clarified. Because of the organization, I tip my hat to Josh Harris and this team. But I think they should sit him out. I think they should sit Jayden Daniels out for the rest of the season. I know they're going to reevaluate him after the bye week. But if this team isn't playing for a playoff spot or anything substantial, they should hold him out for the rest of the year. In other words, this isn't about fear, it's about wisdom. It's about protecting a future that still has promise, instead of risking it for a lost season. And make no mistake, the Commanders are in a lost season. Sitting at 3-7, they're not fighting for a playoff spot. They're fighting for direction, for identity, for the next phase of a rebuild that still feels uncertain. And Daniels, the young Heisman winner turned franchise hope, is supposed to be the cornerstone of that next chapter. But playing him again this year, even if he's technically cleared, could risk something much bigger than a few meaningless wins. It could risk his longevity. It could risk his confidence. It could risk his career, the same way Washington once risked Griffin's. The irony here is almost painful. Washington drafted Griffin III second overall in 2012, believing they had found their savior. The same draft slot, the same franchise, the same narrative of a dynamic quarterback with legs that could break defenses, and an arm that could rewrite history. And for one beautiful, fleeting season, it looked like they were right. RGII was unstoppable, a comet blazing across the NFL sky. Then came the injuries, first an tweak, then the infamous 2013 wild card game against Seattle. Griffin's knee gave out on the muddy turf, tearing both his LCL and ACL. He played through pain when he probably shouldn't have, urged on by the stakes, the pressure, the hope of bringing Washington back to glory, and the rest is history. He was never quite the same again. The explosiveness faded. The confidence was shaken. And within a few short years, his time in Washington, and essentially, his prime, was over. That's why his words about Jayden Daniels carry so much emotional gravity. He's not criticizing the young quarterback. He's protecting him. He's not being dramatic. He's being haunted by reality. Because if you've ever watched a young star get broken before your eyes, if you've ever felt the weight of expectation and the rush of adrenaline masking pain, you understand what Griffin means. There's a certain kind of tragedy in pushing too soon, and Washington has lived that story. Before, Daniels, to his credit, has been spectacular when healthy. Through 6 games this season, he's thrown for over 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns. And just to interceptions, he's played with poise, athleticism, and the kind of charisma that makes fans believe. Again, he's the reigning NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year for a reason, but football doesn't care about fairy tales. It only takes one wrong hit, one wrong twist of the arm, one more drive when you shouldn't have been out there, to turn promise into regret. That's what our GII is begging Washington to avoid. And what's so compelling about this whole situation is the contrast between the old Washington and the new. Under Josh Harris, this organization feels different, more transparent, more professional, more patient. The Dan Snyder era of dysfunction and desperation is gone, but habits die hard. The temptation to play your young star, to squeeze out a few more highlight plays, to give fans something to cheer about in a losing season, it's real, it's intoxicating. But if Harris and head coach Dan Quinn truly want to turn the page on the mistakes of the past, this is their chance to prove it. Protecting Daniels would be the ultimate symbol of that shift. It would say, we're not sacrificing the future for the illusion of the present. Meanwhile, around the league, the reaction to Griffin's comments has been mixed. Some see him as overreacting, an emotional former player, projecting his trauma onto a new generation. Others see him as a prophet, warning of a cycle that keeps repeating because teams never learn. And maybe that's the true tragedy of this sport. The names change, the faces change, the jerseys and stadiums get redesigned, but the stories, the rise, the fall, the shattered promise, they echo across decades. Jayden Daniels is standing in the same storm that once swallowed Robert Griffin III. The only difference now is that maybe, just maybe, the organization has a chance to rewrite the ending. For Griffin, this isn't about bitterness. It's about redemption, not for himself, but for the franchise that once broke his heart. You can hear the sincerity when he says, I tip my hat to Josh Harris. He wants Washington to get it right. This time, he wants Jayden to have the career he never did. Long, healthy, triumphant, because deep down, our GII still loves that city. He still remembers the roars, the hope, the belief that he could be the one, and he knows what it's like to have that taken away too soon. So when he speaks, he's not just speaking to the Commanders, he's speaking to every young quarterback, every fan, every coach who's ever tried to balance bravery with wisdom. Maybe that's the real story here. Not just the injury, not just the statistics, not even the eerie parallels. It's about legacy, the passing of hard-earned lessons from one generation to the next. Griffin's story was a warning written in pain. Jayden Daniels' story doesn't have to end the same way. If Washington listens, if they protect him, if they put long-term vision over short-term satisfaction, maybe, for once, this team can finally break the cycle. Maybe the curse of deja vu can finally end. And so the question now isn't whether Jayden Daniels can play again this season. It's whether he should, because sometimes the bravest thing a player or a franchise can do is not to fight through the pain, but to wait, to heal, to build something lasting. And if there's one man who knows that truth better than anyone, it's Robert Griffin III. Still standing, still speaking, still hoping that Washington finally learns from the past that he had to live through. If you're enjoying the coverage, make sure to smash that like button and drop a comment with your thoughts on the Commanders' latest moves. We want to hear from you. ESPN just dropped a bombshell that's sending shockwaves through the NFL world. And if you're a fan of high-stakes roster moves, you're going to want to sit down for this one. Christian Wilkins, yes, the same defensive powerhouse who has dominated the trenches and made offensive lines quake with every snap, is officially a free agent. That's right. The news came out and instantly set the rumor mill spinning. Because Wilkins isn't just any defensive tackle, he's a game changer, a disruptor. The kind of player every team dreams of. when they're plotting for the next season. Now, the chatter isn't just about him being available. It's about which team will have the guts, the money, and the vision to make a move before someone else swoops in. And if the latest buzz is correct, the Washington Commanders might just be that team. Sources close to this situation have hinted that the Commanders are aggressively circling Wilkins, and closing in might be an understatement. Insiders are whispering that negotiations could wrap up at any moment, which has fans holding their breath because, let's be honest, when a player of Wilkins' caliber hits the market, the phone lines light up faster than a lightning strike. Now, to put this into perspective, Christian Wilkins isn't just a defensive tackle who fills a stat sheet. He's a player who shifts the momentum of games. He's the kind of presence that offenses have to game plan around. That quarterbacks fear even before the snap, and that makes highlight reels every week. For the Commanders, who have been desperate to solidify their defensive front and bring some elite pass rushing energy, adding Wilkins could be the equivalent of installing a nuclear option on their roster. Rumor has it that Washington's management has been in constant contact with Wilkins' representatives over the past 48 hours, and they're reportedly prepared to offer a deal that could make him one of the highest paid defensive tackles in the league, which in today's NFL isn't just about the money, it's about sending a statement: we mean business. Fans are already speculating wildly online, with social media timelines erupting in a frenzy of memes, hot takes, and dream scenarios. Some are predicting that Wilkins' signing could transform the Commanders' defense from a middling unit into a top 5 force almost overnight. Others are warning that the financials might get messy, that Wilkins could demand a level of compensation that could force Washington to make tough decisions elsewhere on the roster. But the excitement is undeniable. Analysts have been circling this potential move as one of the most impactful free agent acquisitions in recent memory. The combination of Wilkins' skill set, his versatility along the defensive line, and the Commanders' strategic needs aligns in a way that almost feels scripted. And yet, like any high-profile NFL transaction, nothing is ever guaranteed until the ink is dry. The whispers remain just that, whispers. The timing is also intriguing. Wilkins hitting free agency at this moment gives teams a rare opportunity to reshape their defensive identity without waiting for mid-season trades or hoping for a draft gem to pan out immediately. For the Commanders, who have been under pressure to prove they can compete at the highest level, this isn't just a chance to add talent, it's a chance to signal a shift in ambition, a declaration that they're willing to play in the big leagues and make bold moves to get there. Rumors suggest that other teams have been eyeing Wilkins as well, but the whispers coming out of Washington hint that they're moving faster, negotiating smarter, and perhaps even willing to take a financial risk that other teams are hesitant to match. In sports, timing is everything, and if the Commanders act quickly, they might just steal the headline before anyone else even has a seat at the table. Of course, any move involving a player of Wilkins' stature isn't without potential drama. There are questions about scheme fit, locker room dynamics, and long-term contract implications. Wilkins is a professional who brings intensity and leadership, but he's also someone who knows his worth, and rumors suggest he's prepared to wait for the right situation. That's where Washington's strategy could be decisive, showing Wilkins that their vision matches his ambition, that he can be the centerpiece of a defense built to dominate, not just a cog in a rotation. Sources have hinted that preliminary discussions have touched on everything from positional roles to bonus structures, with both sides testing the waters to see if this marriage could truly work, and the energy around those talks, electric. People close to the situation say the vibe is tense, optimistic, and just a little bit suspenseful. The kind of tension that keeps fans refreshing their news feeds and insiders pacing the hallways of team facilities. Imagine the impact on the Commanders' fan base if this actually goes through. Social media would explode. Analysts would scramble to adjust their defensive rankings. Fantasy football owners would start recalculating projections as if Wilkins' presence alone could skew the balance of power. It's the kind of news that transforms preseason chatter into must-watch television, and the speculation isn't limited to defensive metrics. People are talking culture, leadership, and swagger. Wilkins has a presence that resonates both on and off the field. Signing him could signal a turning point, not just in terms of wins and losses, but in perception, energy, and long-term franchise identity. That's why this story feels so juicy, so electrifying. It's more than a player signing. It's the potential start of a ripple effect that could redefine the Commanders' trajectory for years to come. But here's the kicker, and this is where it really gets interesting. The deal could be finalized at literally any moment. The rumors suggest that Wilkins' camp is actively entertaining a few final touches, and insiders are hinting that a public announcement could come as early as the next 24 hours. That means fans, analysts, and rival teams are all on edge because one text, one phone call, one signature could officially change the landscape. The NFL loves its cliffhangers, and this is shaping up to be one of the most dramatic free agent stories of the season. While we wait, speculation is reaching fever pitch. Will Wilkins choose Washington and embrace the role of defensive centerpiece? Will negotiations stretch longer, giving other teams a chance to swoop in? Or is this just the beginning of a long, drawn-out saga that will dominate headlines until the draft? Every sign points to urgency, drama, and anticipation, and in true NFL fashion, it's anyone's game until it's officially done. So, as the rumor mill spins and insiders keep hinting, one thing is clear: Christian Wilkins being free on the market is a story that has the potential to shake the league. The Commanders are in a prime position. Rumors say they're moving decisively, and the NFL world is watching with bated breath. Fans should brace themselves, because if this deal goes through, it's going to be talked about for years. The kind of move that shapes seasons, headlines, and highlight reels. Until then, it's a waiting game, but one filled with excitement, speculation, and the kind of drama that makes following football so addictive. Christian Wilkins on the market is more than just news. It's a signal that the NFL offseason is alive, unpredictable, and as always, full of surprises. Keep your eyes on Washington because if the whispers are true, the Commanders might just make one of the boldest, most electrifying moves of this offseason. And fans across the country will be watching every moment until the ink is signed. Thanks for tuning into District Command Central. Make sure to subscribe and follow us for all the Commanders news you need. Until next time, keep the faith and hail to the Commanders.